All right, everybody, we are going to do some draping on skirts today. Okay, so you guys have done the collars. Collars are fun and good. Skirts are better, I think. No, we shouldn't say better, but they are fun to do. I think you'll enjoy doing the skirts, okay? So we're going to drape 3 skirts on 3 different grain lines, okay? So let me just kind of review here. So here's a skirt, and which grain line do we have here? Center front, yeah. So if the straight grain is on the center front, where's the flare going to be? On the side, right. It's away from the straight grain. Okay, good. All right. Okay, here's another one. And this one has, okay, all right, where is this one? All right, this one, can you guys see where the grain is on this one? It's in the middle. So when we have it in the middle, where's the flare? Yeah, it's kind of hard to see on this. If we put it here, you can see better. Okay? So you can see how the flare is on both sides. So we have more balanced flare. Okay? All right. And then here's this one. Okay, and this one, you can see the grain, straight grain is at the side seam. So we're going to have more flare towards the middle of the skirt. Okay? All right, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do those 3. All right? Okay, so there's a couple things we have to do first. Okay. So because we're draping at the waist down, we're going to need the hip line on, okay? Most of them have a hip line, but I don't want you to take it for granted that it's straight, okay? So what you're going to do, so if you make sure you check this, and if you want to take it off and redo it, that's even better, or just check it and make sure it's in the right place. So the first thing you're going to do is measure down to see about where the fullest part of the hip is, okay? So most of these are about 8 to 9 inches. I think these are a little bit smaller, okay? So that one is like 8 inches. And I'm going to go down here, and that's 8 inches. However, we don't, in doing the hip line, it's parallel to the floor, okay? So once you determine where the fullest part is at the hip and how far down, you can start by putting in your twill tape on the side, or you can start pretty much where you want. This one was started here at center front, okay? So I would probably start at the side, go down to the fullest part, and then if you put your twill tape down, then you're going to take the yardstick and you're going to come straight up from the floor. Okay, now this, I've got this higher, so I would lower it and I would sit right in front so that you're facing and you're looking right in front as you do it. So just make sure you put your yardstick straight on the floor and it's going straight up, and you look to see what the measurement is, and then you can leave your yardstick there if you want, or just wherever you're sitting, and just turn it and just keep measuring straight up from the floor all the way around so that it's parallel to the floor. All right, so check yours and make sure it's straight. This one is straight, so I'm going to go with it. All right. So the next thing is we're going to take our muslin. Can you guys have the dimensions that we've given you, and it's not really super long, so we'll make sure that we get the length that we want, that we need. Okay, so now we're ready to mark it, but the first thing that we want to talk about is let me grab the right one here. So when we have our the skirt like this, and we have our straight grain here. If I were to follow that grain, or cross grain, all the way across, where do you think it would end up? Okay, first of all, you can't see the cross grain. So, but if you were to follow a yarn all the way across, like, for example, the hip line, the thing that you would notice is that as we put flare in here, this has to drop. So if you just kind of look at this, see how that's dropping down? So that what happens here is that as you put in more flare, this starts to drop. So your hip line is going to drop down. Okay, so your cross grain is going to drop. So that's what you want to remember, because that's how we're going to look to see that how we put in the flare. Okay, so what we're going to do on here, because I'm going to start here I'm going to start at center front, and I'm going to go over to this side. So I'm going to do this quarter. Okay, and I'm going to put my straight grain right here. Then I'll just kind of go around so that I can actually do all 3 skirts on this dress form. Okay, so I'm going to put my 1-inch seam allowance right here. So let me grab this. Okay, so let's mark that first. Okay.
Say 1 1/8.
What's that?
Or what was the, just 1 inch?
1 inch, yep. So this is going to be my straight seam. So I can just do 1 inch here, okay? But it's the only place where I'll have the 1 inch. Okay, make sure that's, all right, well, it's not perfect, but it's okay because I have a fat pen. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to put on here is my hip line, all right? So normally what I do is just measure how far down, like kind of what I did with the collars. Measure how far down, add a few inches, and put it in. But that's not going to work here, because to make my flare, if I drop my hip line, then I'm going to need extra here, right? So I'm going to add about 3 or 4 inches. So if this is about 8 inches down, and I normally add a couple inches, that's like 10 inches, I'm going to add a couple more. So I'm going to go down to about 12 inches so that I have room to drop that. Okay? So let's measure from the top, 12 inches, and then we'll go ahead and put that here, get that nice and straight. And you want to make sure, I would look at your fabric at this point and just look to see that you're on grain here, okay? All right, and yes, it is hard to follow one yarn all the way across, but you can kind of get a feel for that, okay? Because when you block it, you want to make sure you get it blocked exactly right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm just going to fold this in, get it nice and flat here. Okay. Okay, all right. So then, because this is my center front, I'm just going to write on here, center front. Okay, I'm going to take where I have my lengthwise grain and my crosswise grain together, and I'm going to put that here, okay, right where that crosses. Get my pins over here. Okay, and when you pin this, you want to sink your pins like we did, and you want to make sure that you are right in the middle of the hip tape, okay, that twill tape. Then I'm going to take that grain line and just go straight up center front. Okay? Now when you come to your waist, your dress forms, I could have used the bottom of the waistline tape or the top or the middle. But when I look at this dress form, I can clearly see that the middle kind of dents in just a little bit. So that's where the waist is supposed to be. So I'm just going to go straight up and pin that right in the middle. Okay? All right. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I need to decide how many flare cones I want. So how much flare and how much flare in each flare cone, because we're making it'll look like cones when we're finished. So once you decide, then you need to put your pins here to decide how many you want and about how much flare. All right? So when you guys turn in your grading sheet, just put a little diagram with how many flare cones and kind of the depth. Do you want them all even? Do you want a small one and two big ones? I know, so you guys design that, okay? It's not a ton of things to choose from, but you do get to decide what you want. So once you decide how many you want, then you need to put your pins in to mark that. Okay, now if you want to put two pins in together, that kind of gives you, you'll know exactly where that's at. But I'm just going to do the one pin because that works. So I have a pin here, and a pin here. So I've got 3, so I could do 3, but if I do 3, I'm not going to be able to do a lot of flare on each one because I don't have, well, I have some to work with, but I don't have a ton. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do is, so I've got 3 marked here. I'm just going to go with that. So I'm going to go with 3 flare cones. And I'm going to do them all about the same. And I don't want to I won't get carried away with my flare, so I have enough to go around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, first you have to look at your dress form. And here, I'm going to put this in down here too. So all the way down, center front. Okay, so step 1, because there are specific steps to this. Okay, so I want to get this pin good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this straight over. Okay, and my first flare cone is going to be right here. So what I'm going to do is go straight over till I'm right underneath this. Okay, so I've got this over here. I've smoothed this over nice and flat until I'm right underneath. So I've got to go underneath this for a sec.
So you're just choosing where your flare cones are going?
Yep. So my flare cones, I've put a pin 1, 2, and 3.
Just wherever you want it?
Yep, wherever you want. I can do, well, you want to do more than 1 because you'll have too much fabric. So I'm going to do 3. So I would do 2 or 3. If you want to do 4, then you just make 4 really smaller ones. So this is my first one. So if I were to go straight down from here, I'd be about here, right? Okay, so I'm going to look at it straight on, and I'm going to go over here with my thumb, and I can if I put my thumb on it, then I'm just going to go straight down from that. Okay. And I'm going to put a pin right here. Okay, and I want to get this, okay, there we go, so it'll be nice and flat. Okay, so now I felt over here to where my pin is, I went straight down and moved this over flat. Okay, then with my finger or thumb there, let's see, I'm going to need some fabric scissors. Does anybody have any? All right. Thank you. Okay, then I'm going to go with my thumb here. I'm just going to pull this down, and I'm going to slash. Okay, and I'm gonna slash to that point. Okay, I'm gonna put a pin in there. Okay, and then I'm going to start dropping the cross grain. Okay, and as I drop that, I can decide how much flare. Isn't that wonderful? See, look, no flare, flare. See, and look at how you just, all I do is just drop that cross grain, and I can get all this flare.
So you slashed exactly to the point,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So step one, put in, well, this isn't really a step. Before you begin, put in and mark where you want your flare to be. Okay? Then step one is to hold this, and you can even just, well, usually I slash it and then put the pin in, but you can do either one. Okay? And then go straight down, put your pin in, and then I would go ahead and put, you can either just hold it, but I'd just go ahead and put the pin. And remember, do not slash through the seam. Okay, you can slash through the seam allowance, but not where you plan to have the seam. And I am like 1/8 of an inch away from that. So, and then you drop this to determine how much flare you want. And get your flare right up to your pin. So I'm gonna go with that much. And I might do a little bit less. Okay, and as you pinch it, then you can kind of get a feel for how much flare. Okay, then the next thing, go ahead and put another pin. We're trapping the flare. See? So I've kind of trapped that. And I want you to notice how this comes straight up to my pin, to where I slashed. Okay? So now the next thing is, I've got that. Now I'm going to go over to my next pin is right here. Okay? And then I flatten this. Well, it's going to be hard to flatten all this, but flatten this until I'm right below the next pin. Okay, now something that we have to consider is that we need some ease right here. So the one thing that's really fun about doing this is you can immediately see what the flare is going to look like and how much. So it makes it really fun. Because when we do this on flat pattern and we manipulate our pattern, I didn't hear any oohs and ahs, right? Because it wasn't as exciting. But when you actually see it on fabric, what you're trying to do, it makes a difference. So because I need to put some flare in here, I need to put ease from center front over to the side. How much ease do I need to put in that portion? What's that? 1.5 inches?
1 to 1.5.
Okay, 1 to 1. Okay, 1 to 1.5. Good. So if I do 1 inch of ease, we'll go with the inch. Right. So I need to put 1/4 just in that one spot. So with the 1 inch, that's what I need to do. So as I do this, I can sort of push a little bit of ease into here. Okay? And we don't want this to be too tight. It's easy as you get draping to just do it really tight to the dress form. But you have to build in the ease, okay? There's only like 1 or 2 places we add it later. So if I kind of add that in, that would be okay. So I'm just going to kind of push a little bit over. I don't want to do it all at once. So really, if I have 1/8 of an inch pinched, that'd give me my 1/4. So I'm just going to do a little bit here, not a ton. Okay, so once I have that, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and put the pin in here. So I have it. Okay, and then I've got to look at it straight on. Okay? And I'm going to go straight down from there. And I want to smooth that over to where I get to where the flare cone is. So it's about right here. Okay, I'm going to take a drink. This just takes my breath away, I'll tell you. Okay, so do you see how I have that straight down? Okay. Now, what am I going to do next? I'm going to slash it. Yeah, so I'm going to slash it right to that pin. Okay. All right, and I'm going to cut this off so you can kind of see. Okay, so now I've got that, and now I'm ready to drop this again. Okay. Now I got to make sure I have enough seam allowance here. So see how much we've dropped it? How I'm going to run out of seam allowance. So I'm just going to do, I might do a little bit less than this. So maybe I'll do, this can be graduating, right? Okay, so, but you know what? I think I'm going to go, I think I'm over a little too far. So I'm going to go over here on that. Okay. And this flare should point right there. Okay, so there's my flare. So now I'm going to trap that flare. Make sure it won't go anywhere. Okay. And then I've got one more. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a pin there. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here and I got to go straight down. So I'm just going to go right here. Okay, and then I'm going to slash this. Okay, get rid of some of that. Make sure I have my 1/2 inch. You want at least a 1/2 inch here, so I probably am just barely okay. All right, and then I'm going to bring in another flare cone. Okay, so if I do big, medium, little, that's one way to do it. Okay, all right, so well, actually I could do a little bit more.
Did you add some ease in that side?
Yeah, okay, yes, good point. All right, so I've got that here. So I'm going to go ahead and trap this. Okay, and I've got, this one's a little bit bigger, and then these two are about the same. And you can measure them if you want to make sure you get it exactly where you want it. You can, you know, just measure how much it's folding over. Okay, and then I didn't put in much E, so you know what? I don't really have any E, so I'm actually going to do it right here. Okay, and you can, if you want to pinch out the E's to make sure you don't lose it, you can even just do that. Okay, so now I've got that, so I've got my 1/4 inch. Now I'm ready to pin this, and see, here's my seam, my waistline. If I go up a 1/2 inch, I'm just about right. So now I'm going to mark, I'm going to pin this at the side seam. Okay, now on the side seam, okay, this is a bad pin. Let me try this again. Okay, I'm just going to put that. Okay, so on the side seam, I have that raised seam right here, so I can feel it really good. All right, and then I'm just going to pin it here. Okay, and so pin it, we'll pin it and mark it on the opposite side. Okay, so like I'm draping the front, so I'm going to mark it on this side. Okay, all right, so I think I could be done. Let's look at this. Now, let me just show you something. Okay, can you see how the flare cone is pointing straight up to where the pin and the slash was? Mm-hmm. Well, this is kind of getting a little tight, so I think I'll just do a few more slashes here. Okay, but the one thing is I want this to make sure it's going straight up. Now, if it starts to veer off, that means you have length. You have put length in here. So as I go straight up, make sure you don't have any added length, or it will go off it'll point to another direction. So what I'm going to do is to make sure that's pointing good where I want, I'm going to take this pin out where I slashed it. I'm going to take that slash and I'm going to lift it up just a teeny bit. So did you see how that straightened that out? So here, I'll show you again. I'll add length. Okay, can you see how it's kind of going off here? See how it's going off this way? So if I just take that where I slashed it, where I want my flare, and if I just pull that up, that puts it right back where I want it. So I just had a little bit of length there. So by taking that out, can you see how it's now pointing exactly where I want it? And this too. Now this, I could make sure that's going up, but I think that's okay. All right, and then this is also, I'm gonna kind of lift that up a little bit. Okay, or you can also make sure that your slash is going up. Well, I kind of did a weird slash there. Okay, see right here? If I just lift that up a little bit, that will put that right where I want it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's what you want to do. Get all your flare cones up where they're supposed to be. And then I just put my E's in here, so I'll just mark this. Okay, so now that I've got it done, before I take it off, I'm going to mark, I've got to mark where my seams are so I can then put them in. We're just going to do dots, and I'm going to start right here at the waist, and I'm going to go in the middle of this tape, okay? Because that's where the waist is. And you guys, of course, will be doing this with a pencil, not a felt pen. Okay, now when I get here, I'm going to start going down, so I want to just mark where that last dot is. And then this line from the waist to the hip will be somewhat curved, because that's a curved area. And remember, you mark it on the wrong side of that raised seam. Okay? And then, okay, so I've marked that. I don't need to mark from here to here, okay, because that's going to be a straight line from the hip down. So I'm just going to push that in and mark it right there. Okay? So now that I've got this marked and this marked, I don't need to mark my flare cones. Okay? Because when I put this back on, if I've done these flares right, they'll just appear. They'll just be there with the grain and how I've added in the flare. But there is something you want to do. You need to mark the hem. All right? And so this is hard to do standing up. So just decide where you want to mark it. Okay, how about right here? All right, and then if you just kind of pinch it, keep your ruler straight, and just like you can pinch it like this, and then you'll be able to put that there. Okay, can you see that right here? Well, you guys probably can't see that, but I'll show you when I put it on the board. Okay, so I'm just going to do this kind of quick. It's not going to be the most accurate, and actually what would be even easier is if I mark it with pins. So you can do that as well. So I'm just going to go right here, and you can kind of pinch that, put your pins in, and that'll be a little bit easier. Okay, so right here. Okay, I'm just going to do a few more. Okay, and see, so I've got, like I've marked on the edge of these, but that's a long ways in between. So I'm going to also go in to the middle. So this is probably the only one I'll mark the hem to just show you. And then after that I'll just show you how to do the other draping. But remember, you want to do the hem. Okay. There. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm ready to take it off. Okay.
Okay. Just to confirm, this is the
Yes.
one with the grain on center front.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's my straight grain.
Just
Good.
checking.
Yep. And we're going to do the others. They'll all be done the same, except for a few little changes because of the grain.
Okay.
Okay, so. All right, let's get these. Yes, there's a lot of pins in here. And then I'll go over the score sheet with you a little bit so you can see what you have to have on here. Okay, we'll come back to the dress form. Let's go ahead and put this up here so we can finish it. All right. Okay, so there is the skirt. All right? Isn't that beautiful? Yes. All right. So, let's look at this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the dots. All right? You guys have all done this as a child. Okay. So, you can use your Variform to get a nice straight, nice smooth, not straight, but I think I'll just do this. And now, if you have a dot that's really kind of an outlier or something, you can kind of ignore it or go in the middle. Okay? All right, now, this right here, from the waist, that should go like here. I'm going to bring that down. So from the waist at the side seam down to the hip, that is fairly straight. And that's because I put a lot of flare in. So the more flare you put into it, the straighter that's going to become. All right? So I'm just going to draw my line down through here. Okay, so there's a little bit of curve right through here. And then I'll just take this. So from the hip down, that's going to be straight. Okay, so from here to here. All right. Oh, let's straighten that out. Okay. And then I've got this line. Okay. So I've got my pin. Now, I didn't mark it as much as I could have. So I'm going to take these pins out now. Put a dot there. So you can put in more marks if you'd like to. Okay. So I'll just kind of, so it gets a little bit. So this is a lot curvier, so, but like I said, if you put in more marks, then you'll have a little bit more to follow than what I did. Okay. Oh, that is very noisy. Don't drop the metal ruler, all right? Okay. So, how's that? All right, now we need to do our seam allowances, all right? So, I'm looking around, and I might just grab this, all right? Okay, so we already have this seam allowance. We don't really need to put seam allowance on the hem. Oh, that would be great. All right, so we have this special little ruler that is the exact width of a 5/8 seam allowance. So it's very handy. So if I just put this here because it's kind of straight, and I'll just put that in here like that, and like, okay, like that. Okay, so that's good. So let's go ahead and trim it. And we'll put it back on the dress form. Okay?
And we need to add it on the waistline too, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to estimate that one. Okay. So half an inch to 5/8. And I kind of have a little indent in one of them because when I did my slash, I did it one direction, and then when I went back to correct it, it went in the other direction. So, all right, so okay, these aren't the greatest scissors, but are these from the desk? Or these? Okay, then I can say that about it, right? Okay, so I did 5/8 here with the little ruler, but across the top I just did a 1/2 inch. And then here you can just do your hem. Okay, you don't need to put seam allowance, because that would, for the pattern, you don't really need to put the hem in. The depth of your hem would change depending on your fabric and circumference and flare. Okay, so here we go. All right, we should put a few things on here. So we've got center front, okay, and that's where my grain is, so I'm just gonna put the symbol to fold, cut on the fold, and then this is flared, okay, and you want to cut 1 because it's on the fold, and so I'm just going to put here center front grain, okay, all right, okay, so now what you want to do is put it back on the dress form, make sure everything looks great, okay.
Did you put on anything to account for a hem?
No, I just did a even hem is what I did. That's all you need to do. Okay, and then, okay, so there's my grain, and then I can put this here. You can pin this down, either way is good. And then as I do my waist, I might want to do a few more slash lines so that it will lay nicely, because this is a curved area. Okay, just be careful you don't go through the seam line. Okay, and then I'm going to pin it to the other side. Okay. All right, now you can see how it's, well, I'll show you after. Okay, so then I'm just gonna bring this is over too far. So bring that to the other side. Now if I was putting another piece on here, I might choose to lay this out flat and then put the fold it on the other side and lay that on top. Okay, so I'm gonna just fold it under so you can kind of see better. Okay, all right, and then this will go like that. Okay, and that keeps there. I think we're okay. All right, so you just pin that in and pin that down. Okay, so now you can see we got our flare here, but because of our added ease, it's not perfectly clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it right where I had my pins, because then you can see by lifting that up and pinning it where my pins are, where I did the flare, you can see that where the flare cones are. Okay. Now this, because of the ease, that kind of moved. So it's, if you do your, when you do your ease, I would recommend not doing it all in the same place. I kind of did it all in the same place, so it's it's a little bit harder to tell exactly where it is. Okay, all right, but you can see, so if I just lift these up, if I lift that up, and you can kind of get your ease where it's supposed to go, kind of lift it up a little bit, but you can see how I've got the 3 flare cones, but this one is not cooperating, I think. I'm going to take this out until I get this. Okay, and then here's that. Okay, I've got my ease. I might have a little too much ease. Okay. All right, so you can just kind of work with it a little bit to get it right where you want it. Okay, I think that this, because of the, let's get this where it's supposed to go. There we go. All right, and then this one is over a little bit. Okay, so can you see where the flare is at here? There. And like I said, if you need to lift it up a little bit, because of where I put the ease, it's sort of, so, there we go. Okay, so as long as those are, and then here's this. So I'm actually going to pinch the ease in, because then that will help to put that where it goes. All right?
Beautiful.
Okay, there we go. All right. I'm just fussing now. Okay, that's how you do it. Okay, we're now going to do this from the side seam over to center back. And so the straight grain is right here. And I wrote side seam. I could put a little O in there to be SOS, but no. We'll just do side seam. And I want you to keep in mind that this is a straight grain here, but your side seam is not. Okay? So what we're going to do is we'll start, usually when we'll put this on the middle here where it goes on the other side, and then when I go up, I'm going to kind of go off a little ways because this isn't on the grain, straight grain. This is a curve. We know what that looks like. So I'm just going to kind of put it here, give it a little extra room, and then if I need extra, I have it. Okay, this is hard to put a pin in right here. I'll just go this way. Okay, so, all right, so what we're gonna do is the same sequence, okay? So, how many flare cones?
3.
3.
1. Sorry, just kidding.
I have 3 here, but I don't want to do 3.
I'll
I'm
do
done
2.
with 3. No. I think I'm going to do 2. So I'm going to take these out and put them where over here more. All right? And again, if you put the 2 heads together, then you can feel it a little bit easier. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, there's one. And then I'm going to move this over to about here. Okay. All right, there we go. So there's my 2 flare cones I'm going to do. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over, okay, until I'm below this one. Now, if I, look how much I have here. So at the end, when I'm finished, see how I get, like if I go straight over on the hip and I go up, look how much extra I have. That's a lot. So I'm going to drop this a little bit. And then this extra, I'm okay with that because I can push it off. Okay, because that's what I'll need to do. Because your weight from here to your waist is going to go in a little way, so I'll end up pushing some off. Okay. so let's go over to, where's my pins? Right here. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that in there. This is flat here, nice and straight, and I'm just gonna go straight down. Okay. All right. Lift that up just a little bit. Okay, this is kind of jiggly. She's not used to being this tall. All right, and then before I start dropping that, I'm going to slash. Okay. All right, and we'll take some of this off because I don't need it here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do my flare. And again, we're just gonna drop. See how we're just gonna drop that? Now, if I go too much flare, see how it folds over? So that's too much. You don't want to do that. You're better off just to put a couple in. So I'm gonna bring that back so that I get a flare that actually, and because I'm just doing two, I'm gonna do a little bit more. Okay. All right. All right, so let's go right here. Okay, and so it's standing up, but it's borderline. Okay. All right, there we go. And look, it's going up. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to come straight over, but I'm going to put a little bit of ease right here. Okay. That might be too much. Okay, and then I'm going to put this here and go straight down. Okay, and I'm just going to go straight down and put that in, and then I'm going to slash. Okay, I got to sink this pin first. Okay. Now when I slash, I could slash like this, or I could just slash like that. Okay? So if I go in straight like that, I think that will help it to drape a little bit more. Drape a little bit better. So I'm just going to go kind of straight in there. Okay, then we'll take some of that off. Okay, and then I'm ready to drop this a little bit more. And I've got to make sure I don't have extra length here. I can pull this up in a little bit if I do. Okay, so I have about that much. That looks about the same. Okay, so that looks good. Go ahead and trap that. Look how far down my cross grain is. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, so I don't, all right, I don't have too much ease here, so I'm going to put in a little bit more here. Okay, there. That should do it. And then because this is kind of, on the other one, this was curved, so it made it a little bit trickier. But this one isn't, it's kind of flat through here. All right, so, okay, let's put this here. There we go. Okay, all right. Let me get some of this off. Okay, so there we have it. This one is kind of starting to lay over. Let me kind of push that over a little bit. There. All right. So there's my flare. 1, 2, and they're both actually looking pretty good as far as the flare going straight up. I could raise this up just a little bit. Okay. And I didn't put one here, but I actually could have put a little one in if I wanted. I could have brought that in a little bit, but I'm just going to leave it like this. Okay, so we're ready to mark it. See how quickly this one went? And then I got to make sure, I think I'm okay on ease. Okay, and then I just need to mark where the waist is. Okay. And now I was thinking that I might have needed to push more off here, but I don't think I do, because I've got a little bit of ease here, and so I think I'm okay.
But how would you do if you did need it?
Okay, if I needed to, then I would take this and I would just push it over. See how I've got that pushed over flat now? And then now this is not following the grain here, but when I get down to about here, it hits the grain.
But then do you remark this when
Yep.
you open up?
Yep. So I'm going to remark this right now. I'm going to put that. So let's see, I'll mark it till it, there. There. Okay, so you can see. So there's like this side seam is a dart, so that's why it has that shape. Okay, so I have the seam here. Now I'm just gonna, center back goes straight, right? So I'm just gonna put in a few dots here, but it should be straight. And then I'll go to the hip, and then I can go straight down. So what's the last thing I need to do?
Hem.
The hem. And I would just take the ruler again and just mark across. Okay? But I'm gonna leave mine at this lovely square corner hem. It's a new look. All right? Okay, so now I'm gonna take it off, and I am going to do the seams, and then we can put it back on. Okay? So maybe I'll have Drew work on that while I do the next one. All right? And then we'll put it back on. So when you guys, after you finish these, you'll put them back on, and that's where we'll grade them, as you know. Okay. Do you want to do some seams? Okay, good. All right. Okay, see? Record time. Let's do the last one where we're going to put, let's do this side. So now I'm going to do a grain in the middle, so we can go down here, or I could even go down here. I could do this side if I wanted. Okay, so this one is easy to tell. Okay, so now on this one, okay, what do I need to mark this? Where do I need to mark this? So what I'm going to do, we need a cross grain and a lengthwise grain. So I am going to come, I'm going to put this ruler across the top so it's nice and straight. Okay, and then I'm going to go to about the middle, and I'm going to mark the lengthwise grain. Okay, and then I'm going to go, we did about 12 inches from the top. Okay, and we can go ahead, I'll put another one here. We can go ahead and do the hip line, and it needs to be out from the center, okay? So this. All right. This needs to be maybe. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and put this one in. Okay, so I'm going to do it, I'll just do it right here, we'll just keep going. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is come to this line here. It's like the princess seam. It would be on either side. be, well, that'll be okay. All right, so now I'm going to put my 2 grain lines where they cross, right here where the hip line crosses that princess seam. Okay, and I'm just gonna put that in, and then I'm gonna go straight up. Okay, matching this to that princess seam, and go right up to here. Okay, so now I'm gonna try and do, okay, so I haven't really marked where I want my darts to, flare cones to be. So I'm gonna do 2 on each side. Okay, so I've just done 2 there, and I'm gonna do 1, 2. Okay, so you'll just start on one side, and you'll go ahead and put this along the grain, or along the hip line, okay, until I get to that first one. Then I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in here, and go straight down, okay, till I'm just right straight below. Put a pin here. Okay, that looks, I think I'm going to go a little closer here. All right, and then what am I going to do next?
Slash.
We're going to slash it. Okay, and then we'll drop that. Okay. All right, so that's good. I'm gonna just, now I could keep going, but I like to kind of trap it, but I could just keep going if I want. Okay, now I'm gonna come over here, and I'm going to put a pin here. Wait, I gotta put in some ease, so I'm gonna put a little bit of ease in right there. Okay, and then come straight down from there. Slash. Okay. And then once again just drop your cross grain. There. Lovely. Okay, there we go. So I want you guys to get started. So I'm gonna, okay, so I just go along here, and I need to make sure I have some ease, because it's easy. I'm going to move this over. It's easy to lose your ease on here. Okay, so I'm just going to move that over a little bit. There. Okay, so there's that. And then let's go over here, and we'll do the same thing. I'll just go over to this. Now this pin I put fairly close. Okay, so I just put this pin here. I'm just gonna go straight down from here, like right here, and then I'm gonna slash. So do you guys have that sequence down?
Yeah.
So what's the sequence, Zaya?
Once it's on the dress form?
Like, yeah.
Okay, so you flatten it out, and then you place your pins exactly in line, and then you slash for the top one.
Yeah.
And then you drop the hip line to add the flare that you want, and make sure it doesn't fold over because that's too much.
Oh,
And then
over here.
when you pin, also don't forget to add the ease.
Good.
And then once you have that, you pinch out the flare, and then you add the pin in the back, and you repeat.
Good job. There. Very good. She's excited about this. Okay, so I just went over. Here's my other pin. Went straight over. Now I got a slash. And I'm actually, instead of slashing it this way, I'm coming at it this angle, because I think it will help a little bit to not have funny angles coming in. You already will have funny angles. Okay, and then drop that. There. There we go.
Yay.
Yes, we're done.
Beautiful.
Let me just pin this and, okay. All right. So there is, this might have been a little bit too much flare. I got carried away here. There. Okay. All right. Okay. So you can see, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can see how they go straight up to the pin where I had it. And if it doesn't, if it's kind of veering off, if you just lift that up a little bit, right here, take out that extra length, then you'll have it. Because remember, we go straight up to over smooth up. Okay. So I just need to mark this. I just need to mark this seam. I need to mark this seam. And then from the hem, it will just go down straight. And then mark from the hip to the hem is straight. So this is a little bit curved, this is straight. Unless I put a lot of flare, this will be straight. Hem, do, do, do. All right? So let's look at the score sheet really quick. So what are we gonna look at here? Are the grain lines straight and correctly located? And on here you have the center front grain on the front, grain on the side seam. So put that in the back, and then princess line grain. You can do that in the back or the front. You want to make sure there's some waist ease. So right here, I've got some extra here, and I put in some extra over here as well. Again, it's easy to get that. And I'm going to slash that a little bit. Okay. Then fabric not stretched at waist. Okay, it's easy to stretch this, so make sure it's not stretched. And put some clips, because this is a curve. So you've got your clips where your flare cones are, but you're going to need more. So put in a few more, and remember, we don't go through the seam line. Okay, then the flare cones are appropriate size, so you want to make sure for the weight of the fabric. And see, when I did these two, I didn't even trap it here. I just went ahead and put them in. But you can see, so I don't have these trapped, but they are a good size for the weight. Okay? Flare cones equal in size or as designed. So you guys are going to draw just a little picture of where you want your flare cones, how many, how much flare, and you can just put it up here. I mean, this doesn't have to be a big picture. You can do it back here if you want a big one. But you can just do a little one here. Just mark where you want your flare to be. Seam lines clean, labeled. You have your seam allowance. No clip too deep, and then overall appearance that it looks good. All right, we are done.